We are live,
everybody.
and Roy's well, hey, wait. Welcome everybody. Welcome to Red Hoop Talk. It's a little bit of a different show today for various reasons. Roy, would you like to share?
Well, I'm out in Arizona, and so I'm working from Arizona. So I'm coming to you live from the Hampton Inn in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona.
Woohoo! By the airport, right?
Right by the airport, the lovely airport.
Excellent. Well, we're glad you're with us, Roy. And why don't you, do you know whose land you're standing on? Should we?
I was asking earlier when we were trying to get everything together here as I flew in, and I was like, who are the people of Phoenix? If anybody knows, please let me know.
Well, I'll try looking that up to make sure that we acknowledge the right people in the Phoenix area. But there are several tribes in and around that area, so let's be sure we acknowledge their territory. Roy, thank you, my Caddo brother. I'm Shannon, of course, and I'm from the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma and am the executive director and attorney, woohoo, for the Association on American Indian Affairs. We're going without the green screens today. I'm showing you this is my office where I've got my grandma back here watching me, and my favorite Choctaw lady right here watching me, and I've also got some sage here. I was going to burn a little bit so we have a good show, and make sure we're starting this off right because we've got a few fun technical stuff that we're going to have to deal with tonight. And then Roy's depending on me to push all the buttons, so you know how that goes. So here we go. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm coming to you from the lands of the Piscataway people out in Maryland. And all right, I'm done talking for the night. Roy, how you doing?
Well, I want to thank all the tribes of Arizona because I drove through the whole state. It seemed like to get here back and forth all day, and then now it's 100 degrees out here, so it is pretty warm. And just settled in, got into my hotel, and this is definitely Indian country out here.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but you know, everywhere is Indian country.
Well, like I said, there was a fry bread restaurant right over here by my hotel. It's fry bread and tacos. I don't see that back home very often. I don't see fry bread restaurants. So they actually have a fry bread restaurant out here. I don't know how big that restaurant is, but they make fry bread.
Oh man, Roy, I can barely hear you. You're gonna have to shout at us.
I wanted to go in there and see if there was any aunties making fry bread. Is what I should have done.
Yes, you should have.
if they had like a couple of Filipino guys in there working in the kitchen, or if they had like a couple of real Indian aunties in there.
Absolutely. So let's talk about who's around Phoenix. And if anyone's watching us from the chat room, from YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, add on to our list. But there's some wonderful tribes that I've had the privilege of working with around Phoenix. You've got Fort McDowell, Yavapai. You've got Salt River, Pima, Maricopa. You've got Gila River. You got Acamel, Oatom. You've got other Oatom. I'm not good at saying that. My Oklahoma tongue, for some reason, gets in the way. So if you're from Phoenix or the surrounding part, and remind us if we're missing anybody to acknowledge the land on where Roy is calling us from. We've got some wonderful people that are watching us on the chat. We've got JD and Lance, our regular boys there. Thanks for joining us.
So what's going on this week, Shannon?
Well, can I tell you about something I've been pissed off about this week?
Hear it.
All right. So the association has Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff, right? And so every once in a while, I'll be scrolling through it and reading comments. And for some reason, I'm always surprised by how many people who are who friends of ours on Facebook or other places, and they don't actually read the articles that we post. They just see a headline, they see a picture, and then they start making all sorts of misstatements about what the article may be talking about. And what I'm seeing all over Indian country is that we're not educating ourselves. And I'm so worried because we've got a really important vote coming up in November, and I want everyone to be reading and learning the facts. And so I thought to help do that, I could share some Native news periodicals or papers that folks can go to read the news instead of just perusing headlines and thinking you know what's going on in Indian country and what our positions are. I can't recommend enough Native News Online. They've got some good independent reporting. They're online. You can sign up. You can get a daily news digest from them. That's Native News Online. Another one is Indians.com. Indians.com has got everything on there. Pechanga.net, they've got great gaming news, but they've got everything else as well. High Country News is kind of a new periodical and news source that gives some really great in-depth reporting. And of course, Indian Country Today, that's been around for a while, is available for news articles as well. People, please read the news. Listen to what Indian Country is saying. Listen to the things that are important in Indian Country. These are the things that are informing how we are going to vote in November. And I want everyone to be fully informed and educated about what's important in Indian Country. And I hope that you will vote to support things in Indian Country. So that's my... we need a title for my weekly session about things I'm pissed off at during the week. We got to find a good title for that. So if you come up with a good title for that, let me know.
Shannon's rant. So
Shannon's rant. There you go. Shannon's rant.
Do I still have that little clicking going on? I don't know if I turn the camera off, if that helps it at all. But you know what you're talking about, Shannon, is there's a systemic problem in society, period, today. It has nothing to do with Indian country. It has to do with media in general and the highlight generation. I mean, it's like we look at these news articles, we read the highlights, and then we walk away with our own opinions of what that said. And that's all over the place. It's all over, the media, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere you go. And people don't look deeper into things. And people have stopped reading real journalists. And the periodicals that you just spoke of, there's real Native authors that have dedicated their lives and their time to actually researching, developing, and writing those stories that are informing everybody that's out there. So I'm with you on that because, I promote the TikTok a lot, and it's fun. It's entertaining.
Here we go. We're about to talk about TikTok.
It's fun and it's entertaining, but you can't TikTok through your news. Your information, there's one thing to be connected to people and have information as far as who they are and culture and entertainment. But you can't get your news that way. And unfortunately, a lot of people are getting like 98% of their news from Facebook. And anybody can put anything on Facebook, and the headlines are oftentimes misleading, and people don't spend enough time reading real journalism and informing themselves about what's going on. So I'm with you on that one, sister.
All right. Well, thank you, Roy. And then I got one piece of good news, and then maybe we can introduce our guest. What do you think?
Let's hear it.
All right. So my one piece of good news is I would like to give you all something free. So if you will subscribe to us on YouTube and email my office at general.aaya@indian-affairs.org, I will give you a scholarship to attend the 6th annual Repatriation Conference, October 26th through the 28th, virtually. So you just need a computer for free. So in that email, you tell me why you want to attend the Repatriation Conference, and we will get you a scholarship and get you registered for free. I'm going to share the website so you know how to get a hold of us. Let's see. I'm doing 10 things here at once. So here is the website. Which is at www.indian-affairs.org. This is information about our 6th annual Repatriation Conference. Like I said, subscribe to the association's YouTube channel. Send us an email asking for a scholarship to the conference and why you want to go, and I will give you that scholarship. And I'll put more information on our chat feed so you can do that. Okay, how about that? What do you think, Roy?
That's a good one. That's a good one. I like it. I like it.
Excellent. Yeah, because we've still got some funding available for scholarships, and I thought, well, what better way than to invite our Red Hoop Talk audience to our repatriation conference, because it's an issue we talk about almost every other time. So let's get people to join us there too.
Bring it.
Roy's over there making a mess of things. What are you doing over there?
I'm trying to make it so you're not looking up my nose, but there's decent light, and I can actually not have to hold it, because I'm gonna my arms are gonna go numb.
Well, hey, let's do what we promised and bring on our guests. We have some folks who are joining us on the chat who want to hear from Lynn. So our guest tonight is Lynn LaPointe.
Yeah.
He is from the Rosebud Sioux tribe and is Dakota, and is going to talk to us about who he is and where he comes from. He has spent a lot of time in his career working with Native youth. Do you remember the phrase, Roy? Non-traditional. What was the phrase we were using? A non-traditional path?
Something from like a couple days ago or a day ago.
Yes, I'm gonna make you remember things from a couple days ago, Roy. So Lynn LaPointe, he has been working in education for 25 years. He is a hilarious guy, with a lot of integrity, and is calling, I think, from Michigan. Michigan. Okay. let me shut up and get Lynn up here. What do you think?
Lynn LaPointe.
Da, 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 da.
What's happening?
How you doing?
Hey, we're doing good. Lynn, we're better now that you're here.
Yep, much better.
Well, good to be here. Thanks for the invite. Sure.
Hey, sorry for some of our technical difficulties today, and well, let's just point at Roy.
That's what I do. Point at Roy.
Yeah. All right, Timothy. Hey, he's gonna go pit roasting corn right now. Timothy Manchengo, it's always good that you join us. Happy to see your name, and have a good evening, and roast that corn. So hey, Lynn, did I say something stupid? What?
I'm lost.
That's okay. Hey, Lynn. So how you doing?
Good. I think it was actually yesterday we spoke, and that's like a couple of days ago.
Yep. And when we spoke to you a few days ago, you had your Thanksgiving decorations up already.
Yeah, and we call it the pilgrim background to the Indian foreground.
Yeah, that's right. And Roy was really liking that, and we want to thank your wife for being us taking care of you and making things look pretty.
That pumpkin right there is for Roy. Right
there you go. There's your pumpkin, Roy.
I got it. Yep, we'll make some cattle, some bucket stew on that thing.
So, Lynn, since I butchered up your bio so much, do you mind telling us who you are and where you come from?
Oh, okay. I just thought you were speaking your language there. I thought it was cattle. I don't want to interrupt you. Disrespectful. I introduced myself. My name is Lynn LaPointe. Sicangu Lakota Oyate from the Rosebud Reservation, South Dakota, and I am the youngest son of the Reverend Laverne LaPointe and Adeline Broken Leg LaPointe from Rosebud.
I see you got the official Lakota uniform on there, the black shirt and the B cap.
Oh yeah, multi-purpose. You can wear it to funerals. You can wear it to bingo.
Wear it going out. Yeah, everything.
That's it. Get pulled over by the cops in it. Perfect.
You got your Dickie shorts on too?
I sure do. I can't show you, but my legs, I got the lotion on me.
A little choppy.
Okay. I know
a little choppy right now.
All right, so we're already being told not to believe a thing you say, Lynn. So how do we do this interview?
Well, I have to use a term. I know if the relatives are watching.
Is that a cousin or a foe?
Oh, I'll say here. Well, here, probably both. I know I got some relatives at home watching, so I gotta say, the term we use in Rosebud is always, don't be acting brand new. You're still Watecha. You're still leftovers. So that's what I gotta tell my relatives back home. Yes, I'm not acting brand new. I'm leftovers. I know I'm Watecha.
So Lynn, I know you were born at Standing Rock, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about little Lynn LaPointe and how we got to be involved in Native youth education, and what did we call it when we were talking, a non-traditional academic pathway, or what?
Yeah, I would say that's a good way to put it. I think it's probably the majority of our Native youth out in the Dakotas. You do go through a non-traditional pathway to education. If you do ascend to a secondary education, you come through things the hard way. So you don't come through the highly rated. There's no colleges or universities knocking at your door. trying to recruit you, and so you create your own path as you go along. You go to post-secondary studies, and so we know that's why the dropout rate is so high on reservations, particularly speaking just in the Dakotas. And so you find a way to educate yourself, and usually it's not the traditional educational model. It's very experiential. You learn by doing, you learn by experiencing, and that's typically outside of the school. So you end up creating your own path, a non-traditional path to education, and sometimes you're going to college as a 30-year-old or 40-year-old, for the first time, once you kind of figure out life first, so it's a very common way of education, that's really not really highlighted often enough, but it's really I think the majority of our young people create their own path, and eventually, you do get to that Westernized model of education, or you get through it, or you get to it.
Yeah. Roy, I see you about to ask something.
No, I was just going to unmute and just get in the conversation if we start having one.
Poor Roy.
I'm good. No, I the school of hard knocks, right?
Yeah, yes, that's right. Yeah, that's a great way to put it, because that's what it is, but I think that it's also just as valuable, if not more valuable, than the contemporary models of education, because you have this life experience that gives you this knowledge that you can't learn through a book, you can't learn through a computer program. You have this, so you come as a very experienced student into an educational setting where you actually become just as versed as a professor, or just as versed as somebody teaching a college level course. When you come through that school of hard knocks, and you come through an educational experience that you've designed or you've lived, I think that's going to be, I think that has to be recognized and valued just as equally as the paper education, that you receive.
So Lynn, then why do you think that some people will go through that school, and come out the other side in the better, and gain from that experience, and others won't? Do you think it has to do with mentorship, or people stepping in at certain points in a person's life, or what is it you think that changes that situation from being a learning situation and a good situation, and getting those smarts and then being able to take it into academia, versus people that take the other path, and they miss out and they lose out, and they find the other road, and the black road takes them off into a life of despair.
Yeah, it's definitely that access to mentorship, the access to culture, access to language. If you have those things in place, you have an accessibility, to success that typically you won't have if you don't have that, that connection to culture, that connection to language. If you have those things built into your life experience, to any degree, if you come out of that life experience, you even just speaking non-fluently, but you have an understanding of the language, and you have an understanding of the culture, that gives you the tools you need to really kind of make that transition or that next step. So it really is all about mentorship, who you have in your life, and who steps up, and who has the patience to work with you. I've certainly had those mentors, had the patience to work with me, and I think that's the key to this route, this non-traditional route, is the availability of mentors, and how do we recognize them, and how do we make sure that we continue to recognize them and honor them.
Yeah.
Exactly, because that's my story. My story was I grew up in the streets of LA and in Inglewood and some of the ghetto cities as we moved around in LA. And, you know, it led me down a dark road. And it wasn't until the mentors came into my life and the culture and an understanding of the language. And, you know, when those things finally came into my life, that's when I was able to kind of open my mind to there was another path, you know, and I could take that versus the way I was going, you know. And it was mentors that stepped in. If it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it on my own.
Yeah, yeah. I think you have that at, you know, any level beyond just education. You know, you have that mentorship. If you have that, you know, you greatly increase your chances at success. You know, and I think that's a tough element of a community. You know, a community that struggles with its identity. You know, what's its identity, and who do you honor when you look to fall back in survival, you know, survival skills.
So now with your program, do you match mentors with youth, or do you yourself do all the mentoring in your program, or how does it work?
Well, that was the in the bio. In my bio, it talks about when we were talking earlier the other day about the non-traditional path education. You know, it was the knowledge or the awareness that I was not going to be, you know, going to Harvard. You know, I was not going to be going to Ivy League school, you know, from my small reservation school, you know. And so you kind of the best you could hope for was, you know, maybe tribal college, or, you know, maybe something local, you know. And on my reservation, I had a school counselor that was very good at telling us that we couldn't do this or we couldn't do that, you know. We had a non-Indian counselor in my school, in high school, was saying, well, that's nice that you're dreaming you can go to a Big Ten school, but the reality is you're not going to, you know. So you should do something, you know. You should just quit and get your GED. You know, you have a better chance of creating a life at that. So when you have a high school counselor, you know, counseling you and your relatives that you're not capable, or you can't achieve what you dreamed about, you start to believe them, you know. And so you start to kind of pull back on your aspirations, your dreams of what you really want to do, and you kind of follow the path set for you. And this particular counselor was at our tribal school for many, many years, you know, so I can imagine, you know, just how much of an impact it had on generations of students who wanted to go to college or wanted to aspire to go to a Big Ten school or Ivy League school, but were told, no, you can't. You know, you're just a reservation student. You know, maybe you should go to a trade school, learn a trade. You know, and in my particular case, well, I mean, probably not just mine, but, you know, we're told, well, you know, Jesus was a carpenter. You're good with your hands. Maybe you can learn a trade. You can be a carpenter like Jesus was. You know, I was like, what? Am I in church? You know, or am I in school? You know, but, you know, I look back on it now and realize I was not the only one that was told that. You know, so it still bugs me to this day. You know, that was the professional advice from a professional educator working with me and my relatives before me and after me, you know, who turned around and probably listened to his advice, because I certainly did. I certainly believed I couldn't do what he said, you know, so that kind of lowers your dreams and lowers your standards, you know. So.
But you didn't stay in that. I mean, it's not like you didn't do anything, Lynn. Come on. You had your own strength, or you know, your ability in your heart to move forward, or move in the direction that was useful and important to you. And I mean, the work you do with Native youth is commendable. And, you know, so that despite those naysayers, you know, what do you think of it now?
Oh yeah, it felt good to go home one time and see this particular counselor who was retired then, but still living on a reservation, and tell him exactly what I was doing, exactly where I was at. You know, I was at the University of Minnesota, you know, coming back and telling him that despite everything you instilled in me, telling me what I couldn't do, here's what I did do. You know, so that was kind of a bit of a sweet revenge. Kind of felt bad, you know, kind of came down on the elder kind of hard, but that's okay, you know, because, you know, I was able to tell him just where my non-traditional educational path took me. You know, it took me to, you know, my very first experience off the reservation, I mentioned to you earlier, was a 22-day desert trek with a Pacific Crest Outward Bound School in California, in Joshua Tree National Monument. It was my first time leaving the reservation. You know, my mom and my brother drove me up to Rapid City, South Dakota, to the Greyhound bus station. You know, I had that bus ticket it took me all the way to Joshua Tree National Monument in California. You know, it was a long bus drive. And I went on a 22 days desert trek with 11 other brigade mates and 2 instructors. And it literally, that experience changed my life, because all of a sudden there was a educational model that fit all the teachings that was being given at home, you know, through my parents, through my family, you know, all these traditional teachings, language teachings that didn't fit at traditional high school, all of a sudden fit. I found a place for them. And little did I know that was going to be in a desert of Southern California, you know. And so I knew after that 22-day experience, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an outward bound instructor, and didn't know how, didn't know where. Certainly there was never an outward bound person in our school saying, come, you know, make a career with our teaching methodology. But luckily I had attended some youth development courses earlier in high school here in Minnesota, back in Minnesota, that I had connections, you know, and some of my mentors to this day, you know, were former outward bound instructors. Got me connected with an outward bound school. Next thing I know, I'm on a bus again, another Greyhound bus, this time going to Minnesota, and going on just straight into staff training, up in the boundary waters of northern Minnesota, and just went from one experience to another, and got in the deep end of the pool, and knew I could swim. You know, just never had access to a pool, and was able to make that adaptation to what is an outward bound instructor, and I found all the reasons why I could be an instructor. And I kind of always knew that, but then it wasn't until, you know, I was kind of thrown in with outward bound instructors on a course, you know, and next thing I know, this little reservation boy is dog sledding in the winter and rock climbing and
wow,
whitewater canoeing and rafting, and, you know, down in Texas, up in Minnesota, and, you know, cross training, other outward bound programs. Eventually led to a outward bound program in Minneapolis, where that when I talked about in my bio, introducing urban youth to the outdoors, that was the connection. I found a place for our teachings and our language and who we are as Indigenous people, you know, and I need you here too. So that's really where, you know, we talked about mentorship and youth leadership, you know, that's where, you know, we kind of found my niche, you know, because I knew that for all those Native youth like me, who were not, you know, excelling in school, this is a place where they needed to be, you know, because you can come to an outdoor environment and all of a sudden there's a place for your language and your culture and your teachings, you know, that you couldn't find. You were always that round peg that fit in a square hole at school, but now I found a place where you could fit, you know. And so I spent a number of years being an instructor, and in turn developing my own programs that I knew would eventually design for other Indigenous youth.
Mm-hmm. So are you about to say something, Roy? I don't want to interrupt you.
No, I'm just, I was waiting for you. I thought you were saying something. I was just getting ready to talk.
I can't tell because you're going with the mute button on and off, so I'm not sure, and I
Don't pay
don't want.
attention to me.
All right, what I should just ignore him anyway, right? Who doesn't know? Anyway, so talk. What was it exactly about your experience with this Outward Bound program that changed your life? Was it just merely being connected to the outdoors, or was there a mentor there that helped support you, or what was it? And what that you took from that and have been able to give back to the youth programs you work on now?
I think it was initially it was the camaraderie that's intentionally designed into an outward bound course in a brigade setup in the system, and how you work closely with your brigade and how you work closely with you're intertwined with everybody on your course, and then instructors are essentially giving you the opportunity to learn by doing, learn by doing this yourself, learning to navigate in a desert, learning to navigate during kind of adverse conditions, throwing in some rock climbing and some challenging adventures like that, how to rappel and how to rock climb and get over your fear of heights, and desert hike and all these things that Outward Bound excels in teaching their brigades or young people. It was not only that, but it was my first time being the only Indian in an experience like that. And having that kind of that hesitancy to work with non-Indians, kind of almost ingrained in me, growing up in a reservation. So you have experiences, negative experience with the white population of South Dakota. You tend to kind of build a wall and kind of wall yourself off to protect yourself. And so all of a sudden I'm on a course out in the middle of nowhere after a long Greyhound bus ride, and having to depend upon non-Indian brigade mates, for my well-being, for my food that day, as we all took turns learning to cook and learning how to prepare meals and things like that for each other. You learn this codependency healthy codependency on each other. And so it was really my first time working with non-Indians in a kind of extreme learning environment. And it's an eye-opening adventure when you come from an environment where you've been kind of protective and you're doing anything to protect yourself from being exploited or being used. So all of a sudden it was this kind of awakening. For me on that course, there's Outward Bound uses a 3-day solo program. So you 3 days you're placed on a spot on your own. And it's a reflection period. You're not with your brigade anymore. When you spend the first half being with this brigade, you become friends with them, and you can become reliant upon each other, and all of a sudden you're taken away and put in this solo environment where you're by yourself. And so that kind of throws you off. But for me, all of a sudden it put me in a place where I understood what it meant to be by yourself, that you could pray and you could use this time structuring. You could use this time to really put some structure into what people would think about being left alone. You're leaving me alone in the desert. I remember some of my other brigade mates having not gone through this before, saying, "What am I going to do for 3 days in the desert?" I didn't have any answers. My only answer to myself was, I can pray during this time. I can 3 days. I watched, my relatives and go through a much more intense process, of prayer, during ceremony. All of a sudden I was having all these examples I could take from and say, I know what to do now. I know what to do during these 3 days. And that's what it was. It was really the first time in my life as a teenager from a reservation where I sat and prayed for 3 days, and before I knew it, our instructors were coming to get me. You're done. Didn't have any watch or cell phones or anything back then, so you didn't have a concept of time. All of a sudden, that 3 days just melted quickly, and then I was done. I found time to just make art in the desert, using a bunch of rocks. I woke up every morning to this little hummingbird that bugged me every morning. Got up in the morning and shook off my sleeping bag to make sure there was no scorpions on it. And do a scorpion check in the morning, and I was doing all these things that I can never had imagined doing on a reservation. All of a sudden I was doing them, and learning how to do them. But it was that 3 days of just that solo experience where I decided that this is what I'm going to do with my life. This is where I'm going to go. This is the education I've been looking for. And even at that time, I thought this is the education our young people need. We need that reconnection to the outdoors. We need that reintroduction to a learning environment in which our culture and our language came to us naturally, because that's where it came from. It was born in an environment. In Lakota, we know that the majority of our language comes from the outdoors, and so we're trying to teach a language born from the outdoors. We're trying to teach it in an indoor environment, and it's crazy to me, so, I've always advocated for the use of outdoor education for American Indian education, as a way to get our young people back to center.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like the program was a lot like a rite of passage, with the being in a group environment, and then them taking you out on your own. It is similar. The counselors at my school, I was living beside the freeway when they pulled me into the counseling office and said, "Hey, you got 2 routes that you can go," and one of them, they had 2 gentlemen in the room with me, and one of them was a police officer, and the other one was a Marine recruiter. So they asked me which one I wanted to spend time with, and so I knew the cop. We knew each other well, and so I decided to spend time with the Marine, and that environment was kind of probably a similar environment, being with that group of guys and kind of going through the rite of passage of doing the things that you do as a Marine warrior or whatever. But then it wasn't until, like you said, that a mentor sent me out to spend a few days on myself, that I really did that inner look, and then it all kind of became a little more clear as to the direction I needed to go. And the same thing, it was worrying about where I was sleeping in the morning when I woke up, what was crawling around me, and and then just reflecting a lot and looking at the inside, and then a lot of prayer too, just like what you were saying. So that's it's interesting that the paths that we took that took us away from that black road we were on.
Yeah. And I think that's where we have that initial experience, and back to the individual question, Shannon, was where do the mentors come from? I think that they're born from that experience, and you have that experience, and the people who facilitated it or arranged it, or they come to the surface. When you're all of a sudden the young person recognizing who set me on this path, and then maybe that's the person that I'm looking for. Maybe that's the person I should trust in this process. Not the counselor at school, not the not the people who kind of steered you astray, but the people who are taking a more of a invested approach with you. And those people, from those initial days and those initial experiences, for me as a teenager from reservation, those people are still in my life today. Those mentors are still in my life to this day. So
Wow.
I know now. I look back. I made good decisions. I can tell myself that.
Hey, I think I have some pictures of some of those mentors. Should I show them?
Oh, here's a.
Here we go.
You're gonna have to if you can go to the beginning photos first, man. I'm gonna be in trouble.
What? If I what?
If you don't go to those 2 beginnings photos.
We need to show your baby photo first, huh?
I know. I'm sorry. I promise. This is gonna hurt.
All right. So this is for Mrs. LaPointe.
Jennifer is here.
Jennifer, and I'm going to see if I can show these. Okay.
I should give a pre-warning, but not.
Nope.
See, there you go. there's a thing as chubby baby photos, man. This is a beast baby photo.
That is the cutest kind of Indian baby right there. Look at that. Look at that chubness.
That's a baby destined for type 1 diabetes. You know, that's me and my sister back in Standing Rock in Cannibal community. My sister Yvonne probably had hurt her back in 15 minutes.
And what's the second picture here? Should I go to the next picture?
Those some good looking Resmobiles though.
Oh yeah. A little Standing Rock back in the day.
That a Chevy right there? Yeah. Yeah, those actually look like they're in pretty good shape. Oh, and then look at this one.
That's me and my 3 amigos. I promised my 3 amigos that I'd get them on camera. In the front, and that's Abby in the middle, and that's Gracie. So I had to get my 3 amigos on national broadcast. Unfortunately, 2 of them made their journey, and we're down to approaching 16-year-old Gracie. She's still hanging in there with us.
Those are Cocker Spaniels, aren't they?
Those are bougie res dogs.
Yeah, that's when you know you made it, because they're all one breed. If I was on a res, they'd all be about 6, 7 different breeds in one.
They'd be hungry. Those dogs look fed.
Yeah, I know. I told you some of my relatives say, hey, we can't use your dogs for ceremony. I said, why? Too much white people medicine in them.
Bougie dogs.
Those are Lady and the Tramp dogs, you know.
Yeah,
the Cocker Spaniels, and they get too excited and they pee, right? That's
wow. What Cocker Spaniel you had?
Well, we had a Cocker Spaniel, a female Cocker Spaniel, and because my mom was obsessed with Lady and the Tramp. And so this dog would get excited and wiggle that little bitty stump tail and just
yeah, think of it. The dogs did do it.
Hey, Lynn, Shannon had a cat that used to go into the bathroom and use the toilet. The damn cat used the toilet.
Yes, he did.
What?
Yes, he did. That was De Niro.
Shannon got some animals that are like humans.
All right, so I embarrassed myself with the obese baby photo.
It was beautiful. Beautiful. You were a beautiful baby. Everybody.
I had to grow into that fat, so I had to be 6'5", you know.
There you go.
If I wasn't 6'5", I'd be 600 pounds. But I think we go to the mentors, and I think the mentors are really the key to that alternative educational experience you have as a reservation youth. And mentors come in different forms, and they come at different times. You know, I think that we're expected to have mentors that come on cue. But for me, my first mentor is my brother LaPointe. I'm at Chie LaPointe. That's LaPointe, his wife, and my daughter Talia on the back. That's in Minneapolis. So my father left, made his journey when I was a young man. Being the youngest of 12 in my family, I didn't get to spend the most time with my dad, but I did spend 12 years with him. But as he passed, my mother would say, if you need your father, look for your brother. That's where you're going to find your father. And so he's always filled that role. That's my brother LaPointe, who's back in Minneapolis. That's Nancy front, and again, my daughter Talia in the back. So that's the first mentor who really sent me on this path. He's the one who had that belief in experiential education and how it translates well to contemporary Indigenous models of education. So it was his mentoring that really kind of put me on this path. He's the one who ponied up the money and got me the bus ticket to California. He's the one that ponied up the money and got me on the outward bound course. Because after that course was done, I did go to live with him in Oakland, California.